Hi, my name is Beth Drucker, and I want to invite you all to our meeting of Go Green Illinois. This is, we've been around since 2013, and I also want to introduce Kim Stone, the co-facilitator of the group. There's Kim, she's a councilwoman from Highland Park, and as many of you know, I run the nonprofit community-based group. Kim has that, elected official perspective, and we try to bring a little bit of both those sensibilities to our meetings. We're delighted that all of you are here. We had 80 people registered from, it looks like 35 different communities. So we're thrilled that you all are here. What we do with these meetings is we learn together about a topic that's relevant to all of our communities. And then we're always rushing our speakers. They never have enough time, because we always want each of our groups to make a short report about what they're doing, ideally something that we all could learn from, or they can ask for help to say, hey, is anybody working on a tree ordinance? We could use help with that. And that's how we can work together to collaborate. An example of this, we just discovered that the Lake Forest group and the Wilmette group are both doing a fast fashion webinar. So we're collaborating and making both events better because of that collaboration. So with that, again, I'd like to welcome you to this meeting. Our program today is Healthy Habitats at Home and Nearby. And we're going to be talking about what we can do right in our backyards, which is very, very important. With Speaker Leslie Shad, we're going to be talking about a very important piece of legislation, the B bill, with a middle schooler, Scarlett Harper, who, believe it or not, started this bill and helped write it with Robin Gable. We're going to be talking about Forest Preserve districts. Henrietta Saunders from Glenview will introduce Speaker John McCabe. We're going to be talking about an upcoming referendum that's very important for the forest preserves. If your community does not happen to be in Cook County, remember that your forest preserves are facing the same problems that John is going to be addressing. And then we're going to finish with Emma Oschrin about a Budburst program, which is sort of a citizen scientist program. So before we call on our first speaker, who is Leslie Shad, who will give a more complete introduction of herself, I just wanted to mention a few issues that all of us might, or many of us might be interested in. Many of the Go Green groups are beginning to collaborate on shared programs, which really is a great way to get more people into programs. Winnetka, Go Green Winnetka is collaborating with other partners, including Go Green Wilmette and other communities, on inviting Jan Schakowsky for an in-person and hybrid event. Jan Schakowsky dealing with environmental issues. That's March 22nd. I know you can find details and registration on the Go Green Wilmette website. I also wanted to 12 different communities are dealing on the gas-powered leaf blower restrictions. They're working on that together, led by the village manager of Highland Park, as well as the village manager of Wilmette. And they are actively working to try to make the restrictions workable and more consistent across communities. If your community is not doing anything to look into restricting gas-powered leaf blowers, you can ask your village manager to be part of that group. And also a lot of the groups are working on tree ordinances. Hopefully Wilmette is going to pass a new and improved tree ordinance tonight. If your community is interested in tree ordinance issues, I'd like to recommend the Chicago Region Trees Initiative. They want you to improve your tree ordinance, and they are available to help. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kim Stone to see whether she has any additional announcements, and then she can introduce our first speaker.
Okay, thank you. I have one additional announcement. The RTA is in the process of developing their 5-year strategic plan. When they held their first and only community meeting about the strategic plan, it did not mention electric vehicles or transitioning to electric buses or fleets for our public transit agencies. They have now included electric and climate change as terms within the strategic plan, thanks to outreach from a lot of individuals, particularly members of the Climate Reality Project. I am going to go ahead and post an action alert in the chat. If anybody would like to give input on the strategic plan, there's some instructions and a link to do that that I'm going to put in here. And those are due on March 11th, so coming up very soon. Okay, so The first speaker is Leslie Shad, as Beth already said. Leslie is from Evanston and has done great work on habitat programs in Evanston and getting Evanston certified as a habitat, National Wildlife Federation habitat community. She's also educated us in Highland Park. We are now in the process of working to get Highland Park certified as well. So I'm interested to hear what she has to say to the whole group and hoping that others will be able to join the habitat program as well. So Leslie. I think you're still on mute, Leslie. I see your lips moving, but no words coming out.
I have to do that before I do this. Okay, here we go. Okay, and then let me go back to the. Thank you so much for including me. So yes, I'm with Natural Habitat, and basically we're trying to change the culture of lawns. I'm just going to talk for a few minutes about, the typical lawn, just what the issue is first. A typical lawn involves mowing, fertilizing, watering in the growing season, broadleaf herbicide, herbiciding walkways, insecticide for non-native plants like roses or whatever, usually not on native plants, blowing away leaves and dust, mulching them and hauling them away potentially. So here's a different idea. This is buffalo grass and echinacea, and obviously a lot less work than that. The general feelings often are, what's the big problem? It's one lawn, Well, lawn is our largest irrigated crop in the United States, more land use than corn, wheat, and fruit trees combined. In addition to that, we tend it, we use treated water for the most part. We overwater by half, and then we use 30 to 60% of municipal fresh water supplies on lawn. We apply toxins and chemicals at 10 times the average rate of farmers. And we use lawn equipment, which you all know about, and even if fuel, smog, and even if you're using electric and not conventional leaf blowers, you're blowing particulates into the air about 5 pounds per hour. Sorry. In addition to that, you're sandblasting biodiversity. So there's those issues. And what is turf grass? Basically turf grass is a concept imported from wealthy estates where essentially they had the capacity and the labor in order to preserve or create a pristine lawn area. They're ecologically, not productive because we mow them, so they don't produce seeds, nectar, or pollen. Generally, the species are native to Europe and Asia, and they displace native plants. This is my last general, one of my last general slides, but, we all know about the decline of sort of the charismatic megafauna. The rusty patch bumblebee is a federally endangered bumblebee. I'm going to mention them again later. Monarchs are down 90%, although we hope there's going to be a tick up this year. The word is that potentially in March, we'll get a little bit of good news about monarchs in Mexico. And all of us of a certain age, if you see this little cartoon, have actually experienced the loss of biodiversity of insects. There's a New York Times article that said, people are aware of these charismatic bugs, but their worry is that a whole insect world might be quietly going missing. And I mean, I do know that growing up, your windshield would be splattered with insects. And now I can tell you, I can drive from here to Toledo, Ohio in July and have 2 insects on my windshield. We all have experienced that. And even if you don't care about insects, people care about birds. 3 billion fewer birds since 1970, that's 29% drop. And, birds rely on insects, 96%, this is according to Doug Tallamy from the University of Delaware, 96% of land nestlings rely on insects. And he has calculated that for a clutch of 5 chickadees, you need 6,000 to 9,000 caterpillars. When you think about a caterpillar, of course, they're kind of like in Doug Tallamy's framing of this as a, moving leaf or foliage. So they're just gathering nutrients that then are critical for baby birds. So what are some things that we can do either in the green communities or as municipalities or counties ourselves? So here's some suggestions. First of all, in terms of our public grounds and properties, we can, and I'm going to briefly talk about some of these things. There are options to mowing. We could focus on keystone plants. There are plants that are more valuable for wildlife than others. I've recently learned in Evanston that our vendor questionnaires that the city of Evanston provides have not kept up with our climate action plan that we actually passed in 2019. And so that our vendor questionnaires are not asking about supplies of natives or neonicotinoids in our plants that are provided. And another thing we can just do is, our janitorial staff knows where there are bird collisions. We can ask our janitorial staff to put in, a lens on that watches for bird collisions and let us know which are the problem windows, which are easily treated. So there's that. So there's, in addition, join or host. You don't necessarily have to create these things, but plant sale, yard tour, you could potentially join with other, one or two communities joining together in some of these. Pollinator pledge. There's a project going on to help the rusty patch bumblebee, and there's National Wildlife Federation, and I know that others have done the Audubon project, which I don't know as much about. So there are different community wildlife habitat projects to take on. And then there's Bellbowl Prairie, and I'm going to mention that as well. So first of all, what are solutions to mowing? I mean, there are a lot of solutions. The first one is mow less often, let some clover, dandelion, and violets crop up in your turf grass. Second one is use a different kind of grass. Use native turf-like grasses or no-mow grasses. You probably all know about many of those. For the most part, the no-mow commercial grasses are non-native. They're mostly fescue and all, but they save all of that care. They require much less watering. Mow maybe once or twice in the season. It's just a much more sustainable way to have gardens, even if you're using non-native no-mow mixes. And reducing, of course, my favorite is reducing the lawn area by actually planting native plants. So here are what some of these no-mow mixes. This is the no-mow non-native mix. You can see it obviously does not look like turf. It looks like waves of beautiful grass. And this is Pennsylvania sedge, which is a non-native, a native. This is a native sedge. There's also James sedge and ivory sedge that are also can be used as turf. And this is buffalo grass, which this grows in sun to part sun. It is a warm weather grass, so that it, it basically doesn't green up until late May or early June, which is later when your neighbors have all gone green. You're not green yet. But anyway, there are options. And then this is a neighbor of mine. So she started with Pachysandra. And now, of course, she's planted, diverse plants that give her spring. This is probably April, or this is probably May, actually, plants. And then this is most likely August or late July plants. So she has, interest. And I wanted to call out as well that this is an example of layering for birds. She has upper story, mid story, and then low story, which is what birds need for diverse habitat. And this is her parkway. So obviously started with turf and now has a shade garden. In fact, it's much more full than this indicates now. This is at the beginning of last year. And here are the options, native turf, buffalo grass, oak sedge, James sedge. These are all native varieties. Native ground covers, wild ginger, fern, strawberry. You all can probably think of many more. In part sun, I have sedum ternatum and their sedges. And then non-native, these are sources to get non-native no-mow mixes from Prairie Nursery, Prairie Moon. And then Green Edens is an Evanston group landscaper who I know also sells a no-mow mix. many of us are focused on, nectar, seeds, berries across seasons. So we know about that, but I want to call out as well host plants because 90% of insects rely upon them. Many people know, of course, and probably you all do, but I'm putting it out there because I think it could be a focus for local action, is to focus more on host plants. Many people know that the monarchs rely on milkweed, but this is of course true for an enormous number of other insects. This is a flyer from the Field Museum showing Chicago butterflies. I have the link at the back of this presentation if we share it out, showing the Chicago butterflies and their host plants. So just like the monarch relying upon milkweed, the violet fritillary relies on violets, pearl crescent on asters. The red admiral relies on nettles, the spice bush swallowtail. So planting a variety of plants that actually support their co-evolved insect. What's happened with the way that host plants support their insects is that they basically evolve together, and their insect may even develop an enzyme that allows them to digest an otherwise not digestible plant. This is why cultivars are a concern. Cultivars are not necessarily bad, but the issue is that when we breed plants for height, formation of bloom, variegated foliage, whatever type of or color of bloom, we may make them less compatible with their co-evolved insect. So the chemistry may change. The insect may lack the mouth parts to actually access the plant. The blooms may be sterile. There are a variety of ways in which cultivars can end up being not useful for its co-evolved insect. So it requires research. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of research on this issue. But that's why we're pushing native plants to the extent we don't know whether the cultivar supports their co-evolved insect. So one suggestion, a solution for a municipality is, plant keystone plants. This is Doug Tallamy's list and just looks at the top plants available. These are the woodies. These numbers relate because many people will say, oh, I thought oaks support 530. Well, this is for Illinois. This is just Illinois species of moths and butterflies that are supported by oaks in Illinois. So, oaks, cherries, willows, birches, these are the top wildlife plants and the reason that you're calculating wildlife value in caterpillars, basically because caterpillars feed so many, not only birds, but, mammals and other insects and they are an important element of the food chain. And this list is the top herbaceous plants. So these are the woodies here and then the herbaceous plants. So just be sure, there are goldenrods that do not spread like crazy, or that, that are much more delicate than tall Canada goldenrod. You can plant, elm leaf goldenrod and blue stem goldenrod, a real variety of options here. Wilds, these are all the native varieties. So we're not talking about non-native strawberries. We're talking about the wild strawberry with Virginia in the name. These are actually non-stinging nettles that I just had to call out because we probably all pull these. This is, I actually think they're perfectly fine, and they're obviously important host plants for the red admiral and other insects. I want to call out, maybe in our municipalities, we could, in a pilot project, it doesn't have to be your whole park area, but leave the leaves. In one area of your park, you can even put up a sign that tells people what you're doing. Fireflies may live underground or in a debris for 2 years before. So it's not like you just want to leave the leaves for, December and January and then sweep them all up. Well, a lot of insects don't emerge until May or June. They'll wait for 50-degree weather. And when they do emerge, they're emerging perhaps as, caterpillars and larvae. So they still have their development to go through in order to leave the debris. I mean, this is our native ladybug. It basically lives in our debris. This is the woolly bear caterpillar, but as an adult that, spends the woolly bear, persists throughout winter as a caterpillar and then emerges. And of course, bumblebees are in just under the topsoil in rodent holes. This is a non-stinging minor bee as well. The other thing that I'm just suggesting, two ideas, is to screen your vendors for their ability to not to provide plants without neonicotinoids. You know, the Natural Habitat Evanston, we gave the city of Evanston 31 cloned elm trees that were resistant to Dutch elm disease. And the city was preparing to, you know, receive those trees. And I said, you know, well, we have to figure out that they, you know, confirmed that they are not treated with neonicotinoids, which is a systemic pesticide, so that when something's treated with neonicotinoids, it's not only in the roots, it's throughout the whole plant and the pollen and the seeds. And American Bird Conservancy has said that one treated seed can kill a song sparrow. So they're more regulated outside of the United States than in the United States. And when the city went to check on its 31 elms, well, the grower said, well, of course we do a soil drench of neonicotinoids before we ship any of our trees. And so the city was able to pull their trees to avoid their being soil drenched before we received them. And these are actually, you know, these were elms that are clearly to be used for wildlife. So that is sort of a little surprising. I'd say the reason that's surprising is that it's not unusual for cultivars to be get a soil drench of neonicotinoids. We did a call out to maybe 30 different nurseries in our area, and all of them could say none of our native plants are treated with neonicotinoids, but 0 of them could attest that their cultivars and non-natives are not treated with neonicotinoids. They use other growers. They don't really control that. So it's a question we need to ask more and more, and it can be a vendor question, part of our vendor questionnaires. The second one is, as I mentioned, you know, there are easy solutions. This is a Fish and Wildlife Service link that shows a lot of simple solutions to bird collisions. So yes, and we probably know where we're having the collisions. This is using a ceramic pen to mark our windows. Another solution is to pay attention for the rusty patch bumblebee. This is what it looks like. It has a little rusty patch right here. If it has a little bit of yellow around the rusty patch, that makes it the rusty patch and not the brown belt bumblebee. It's one of about 500 species of bumblebee, declined 87%. And its host plants are typical things: any liatris, any milkweed, any echinacea. This is Joe Pye weed. This is Monarda fistulosa, which I bet most of us have growing somewhere in our communities. Culver root, any goldenrod, and this is New England aster, that are the plants that the Fish and Wildlife Service has identified as particularly host plants for the rusty patch bumblebee. So it's not difficult to support the rusty patch in our gardens. This is its former territory, and now you see where we basically find it, but you see how important our area is for the rusty patch. So here are 2 solutions. One is, they're both through iNaturalist, a citizen science projects. One is to plant plants from the Fish and Wildlife Service list, which is, all of this is available at this website, evanstonhostplants.org, but also the Fish and Wildlife Service, and that link I've included at the end of this presentation as well, if we share it out. So you can plant the plants. Probably the plants are already planted in your area, so we'd like to be able to map what the habitat that's available for the rusty patch, because we can also get people surveying those particular areas. So first of all is plant and map, take pictures of your gardens and upload it to iNaturalist, and then upload photos of bees, and not just bees, honestly, bees, flies, whatever you see that looks kind of like it might have possibly be a rusty patch bumblebee, upload those photos and then post them so that bee experts can determine if we're actually seeing any rusty patch around our area. So there's that. Bell Bowl Prairie is an area, it's one of the last remaining gravel prairies in actually in the country, but also in Illinois, our prairie state. And it is in danger of being plowed under for the Rockford Airport. So if you go to this website, they have lots of solutions. There's a petition from the Illinois Environmental Council to try to save Bell Bowl Prairie. Another solution, this is our pollinator pledge, but obviously you can, well, actually we've offered that we get calls from other communities who want to basically take our designs, and we're fine with that. You know, we're all on the same team here. Our pollinator pledge is to leave leaves and plant stalks, no pesticides, because we're talking about residential communities, for the residential homes for the most part. We realize that there are restoration purposes to pesticides, but for our homes, we can, you know, pull or smother weeds a bit. Native plants, mowing less, and reducing light pollution is our pledge, but you could create your own. The community wildlife habitat, so there's not only National Wildlife Federation that offers this, there are Audubon has various community projects. So I'm calling out this one because I know this one well. Evanston did achieve community wildlife habitat, was one of the, well, we were the first municipality to get a community wildlife habitat. There was a housing association before us, but you know, we're 75,000 people, so that's pretty good. The NWF wildlife habitats, there are 200 of them. They include the city of Houston, Austin, Texas, Charlotte, North Carolina, Baltimore. I mean, they're big communities that are doing this. So it would be great to have more people involved. In the introductions, they mentioned working with Highland Park on this, and I'm happy to, you know, tell people what's involved and see if it would be of interest. I want to mention that the reason that Evanston did this program is because intentionality is better than just, you know, sort of off the top of your head trying to, you know, create a wildlife habitat. If you actually think through food, water, shelter, sustainability, you statistically create better habitat, more diverse habitat. The other reason we chose National Wildlife Federation is that it's very carrot. It's not very stick. So it's easy, people self-certify, there are lenient rules on retaining certifications, most gardens are going to qualify, and there's lots of room for enhancement, leaving leaves and reducing pesticides and lots of other steps that you can take beyond just providing food and water and shelter. So this is our list of resources, which we can share out if people are interested in that. And we are doing more talks next week on bird collisions and on rain gardens and on shrubs and trees. But that's the end of this. And I guess what I should do right now is to introduce Scarlett. Is that my next step here, Beth?
It is.
Okay, well, Scarlett Harper is an amazing person. She's 11 years old, and she's from Winnetka, and she's on the Environmental Forestry Commission of Winnetka and a member of the Sunrise North Shore, District 36 Green Team, and Grow Green Winnetka. So she's just a powerhouse, and she's worked with Robin Gable on legislation to reduce the resistance of mosquitoes to pesticides at the end of the day. So Scarlett, I will kick this over to you. And I want to just do a call out that I am 100% happy to talk to any community about any ideas. So please don't hesitate to email me to set up a time to talk if you're interested.
Hi, I'm Scarlett Harper. A few of you probably remember that I was here a year ago when I first started working on the bee bill with Representative Gable. But I wanted to give a little bit of background on myself and the bee bill and kind of how I got here. I just started out as a backyard nature lover. Being outside is my happy place. I love gardening and I love bees and butterflies and birds, everything outdoors. But a few years ago, I started noticing fewer and fewer bees and fewer species of bees and seeing a lot of dead bees around my town. And I kept also seeing these pesticide trucks spraying for mosquitoes. And the two things felt very related. And so I did some research and found out that the chemicals that are used to kill mosquitoes in like local areas are also lethal to bees, lots of other insects, harmful to wildlife, and also correlated to ADHD and brain development issues in people, especially kids. And the really horrifying thing was that they were completely unregulated in Illinois. So I decided to contact my Representative Gable and meet with her about the issue. She was actually really receptive and she agreed to write a bill with me. And we worked with the Mosquito Abatement District, policy research experts at Northwestern, and I worked with her political director to write HB 3118, which is the bee bill. Basically, the main purpose of the original bee bill, as it was written in the beginning, was that it banned the subscription-based model and replaced it with an evidence-based model. So what does that really mean? Right now, pesticide companies just get their clients to pay for them to come on a subscription and spray every 2 weeks or every month in the summer without ever even knowing if there are mosquitoes. So an evidence-based model would require them to find mosquitoes in a yard before they spray. Additionally, the bill required people who wanted to spray mosquitoes for commercial reasons to have been trained with a program that would talk about pollinator protection from mosquito pesticides, natural alternatives in mosquito abatement to pesticides, and how to use mosquito abatement pesticides properly. It also required that pesticide companies not apply mosquito control pesticides in wind speeds above 3 miles an hour to avoid drift. Now, I know 3 miles an hour is a very low, very aggressive wind speed, but the important thing about it was that because that wind speed probably would have gotten changed, I chose that number to anchor the wind speed low, so that when it got changed, it would still be below the label requirement of 10 miles an hour. Because it's very important that these pesticides are sprayed in low wind speeds, because if not, they get spread to yards everywhere around. So even if I weren't using these pesticides, if my neighbors were, I would not be able to protect my bees and my pollinators in my garden. And that's really important to me. And additionally, the bill was meant to require pesticide applicators to put up signs on yards that get sprayed and notify neighbors of the yard that they were spraying on that pesticides were used. I spent a considerable amount of time after getting the bill language decided, cold calling and emailing representatives all around the House to get almost 24 co-sponsors for the bill, both from the progressive and moderate caucuses. So I was feeling very confident that the bill would have passed if it had been called to a vote. Unfortunately, there were a lot of opponents to the bill from landscapers and pesticide companies that were lobbying to have the bill changed and begging for compromise. Because of Robin Gable's perceived need to compromise with these groups, the original HB 3118 did not get called to a vote last year, unfortunately. This past month, Representative Gable promised to get me the revised language to the bill with the amendment, but she waited basically until the last minute, in fact, 50 minutes before the committee meeting that I was supposed to testify on, to let me know what the amendment would be. And when I did read through the amendment, it turned out that she had removed the requirement for an evidence-based model from April to October, the only months that these pesticides ever get used. And there were other restrictions like wind speed and the other things that were made less strict or completely taken out. We spoke at length, and her recommendation was that I fight to get it amended in the Senate back to the original bill and get a stack of postcards from businesses and individuals all over Illinois stating support for the original bill. And I want to just say that even though that seems like a bit of a crazy timeline, trying to get it amended in the Senate and then bring it back to the House and pass it, that was her suggestion. So I do think that it is possible. And she said that it could be done this year. So I don't want to make perfect the enemy of good. And if I can't get it passed in its original form this year, I think it's worth getting it passed with something. But if the suggestion is always going to be just make it something more strong next year, why not just do that this year? That's just my personal opinion on this. So I have a meeting Thursday with Senator Laura Fine to ask her to amend the bill in the Senate, because she will be its Senate co-sponsor, or Senate primary sponsor, I guess. And I would love to get it passed this year as it was originally written. Because it's a very important issue and it's an urgent issue. So what can you guys do to help it pass? I'm gonna put a link to a template doc of like all the template emails and postcards that could be sent. to Representative Gable, Senator Fine, and your senator and representative. If possible, please write on behalf of yourself and your organization and business and encourage any green businesses, like, for example, Greenwise Evanston, to do the same. Because if we can get support from businesses and individuals all over Illinois, that makes it a lot easier to make the case that the bill as it originally was would have passed. So, okay, give me just a moment. I want to put the link to this document in the chat, if does that work well?
Yep, if you put the link in the chat, and then I will post it to the Go Green Illinois website as well.
Okay, thank you so much. Just a moment.
And I think that
Okay.
I'm just going to say while you're doing that, the progress that you have made on this, as Karen just put in the chat, is amazing. Even though it seems like a very long time to you, those of us who have been working on these issues for a long, long time, to do this in 2 years, especially in the 2 years that we've been working on this, is amazing. And even if the bill isn't exactly what you want, I think there's a lot of really good things in it.
I totally agree. And I think that passing something in this case is much better than passing nothing. But I think that it would be much more effective to try to pass the full bill, because the evidence-based model was kind of the core regulation. And I mean, if I got this far as a kid and I can't even vote, I think that it would be so helpful to have all of you guys send these emails and these postcards, because I think that the voices that like support this really, really do matter. So
Yeah,
thank you so much.
Scarlett, thank you so much. Looks like you're not at school. Looks like you're back home, but she stepped away from her school to come join us. I hope that we will be able to invite you back again to congratulate you for the successful passing of the bill. Thank you so much. It's amazing. And for all of you working in all the different suburbs, we've got probably people from 30 different suburbs that we communicate with. This is something your group really can do. Pay attention to these burgeoning backyard spray companies. You didn't see many of them 5 or 6 years ago. They are everywhere. And they say that it's safe. They're killing insects that are really, really important. And so it's an issue that we should really pay attention to. And kudos to you, Scarlett, because you led the way for many of us. So thank you very, very much. Leslie, did you want to conclude, or are you? So thank you, Scarlett. We'd love to have you stay, but you may have to get back to school.
Thank you guys so much.
All right.
Yeah,
We'll
I
keep
can
you
stay around
posted.
another minute.
Okay, good. Leslie, anything you wanted to wrap up with?
No, I know I went through that at a million miles an hour, but I just want to keep you on schedule. So
Okay.
I'm fine. I'm fine to talk to people.
There was one question in the chat that I just want to ask Leslie very quickly. And several people mentioned Conservation at Home, which is another program to look into. I believe that there is a post about Conservation at Home on the Go Green Illinois website that I just recently approved. Somebody, maybe Glenview, is doing a presentation about it. Yes, I see Mary shaking her head. So check the events calendar on the Go Green website. Somebody asked about converting their regular lawn to one with a no-mow mix, how long that would take. Is it better to start with certain areas, sun or shade? Can you just plant into your existing lawn or pachysandra or whatever you have, or do you need to remove it first?
Yeah. So first of all, Conserve at Home is terrific. And it just had not really gotten going in when we started this in 2015 in Cook County as much. So and my yard is certified by Conserve at Home. So I'm not taking anything away from them, and any program is a great idea. So what I did and what I would recommend and what I did is actually in April, I put down cardboard, covered it with compost and mulch, seeded it actually with buffalo grass and with echinacea, as well as a bunch of other wildflowers, and got that going by August. So by August, I had, 18 inches of plant, basically, pretty much. So that worked fine. I I would say, I'm waiting to see what happens this year. So I'm just upfront about that, but I have progress photos. I think, the advantage to using cardboard is that it doesn't damage tree roots. It, enhances your soil. You can't really plant in because you'll be fighting that like for the rest of your life if you're trying to plant in things. But I would recommend rather than, if you take off turf or pachysandra, you're also removing topsoil. So to the extent you can, trying to smother them you can also do it with black plastic. I'm not recommending plastic, but if you're talking about pachysandra, that's hard to do with cardboard, and plastic might be a better way to go. So that's called solarization if you want to Google that. So that's it. Yeah, those are some suggestions.
Okay, thanks. We've planted right in where we've got pachysandra, and it's not been a problem. We just keep the pachysandra under control and keep pulling more each year. And one other comment I just want to make is you talked about the city of Evanston purchasing trees that are soaked in neonics. The city of Highland Park has specifically included this in requests for proposals so that when they go out for bid for any plant material, plants as well as trees, the contractors are aware that we would like products that are not treated with neonics, and that is in the actual request for proposals as well as in the contracts for purchase of plant materials. So Beth, do you want to introduce Sherry, or should I?
Oh, why don't you go ahead, Kim?
Okay, and Leslie and Scarlett, thank you so much. This is really great information. We're going to keep forging ahead. So Sherry, I don't see you on my screen. But oh, there you are, Sherry Latash. Okay, there you are from Glenview. I'm going to introduce Sherry, who is going to speak instead of Hank a little bit about the Forest Preserve District of Cook County, and then you're going to introduce our next speaker.
Correct. So I'm Sherry Latash, co-founder of Greener Glenview, and I'm a stand-in for Henrietta Saunders, Glenview's chair of our Environment and Natural Resources Commission. And Henrietta is also on the steering committee of the Vote for the Forest Preserves referendum. So when you think about healthy habitats, you are correct to think about forest preserves. Across the Chicago region, forest preserve lands perform critical ecological services that measurably improve our quality of life. They protect millions of trees, which store carbon and provide clean air for us to breathe. They clean and absorb storm and rainwater, substantially reducing flooding. When appropriately managed, they provide habitat for wildlife and beautiful settings for people to enjoy, helping to restore our physical and mental health in stressful times. With 40% of our state's residents, Cook County is the largest county in Illinois. It is also the most ecologically diverse. And with over 70,000 acres, the Forest Preserve District of Cook County is bigger than many national parks. Our speaker, John McCabe, has a big job with a big impact. He manages the Department of Resource Management, whose mission is the preservation, restoration, and protection of natural areas and public open space, and to provide an environment for the region's native plants and wildlife to thrive in an urban landscape. I'm sure he will speak to us about the science and about the human dimension of this important work. What John cannot speak to us about is the political landscape for the forest preserves, nor as a county employee can he advocate for an initiative which we will vote on in the November 8, 2022 general election. At the very end of a long ballot, in obscure bureaucratic language, will be an initiative to support clean water, clean air, wildlife, and people by increasing the tax limit for the Cook County Forest Preserves by 1/4%. This amounts to less than $1.66 per month for the vast majority of homeowners. As people concerned for the planet, we must support the referendum. Go Green Wilmette, Go Green Barrington, and now Greener Glenview have already added their names to the coalition, along with the Illinois Environmental Council, the Nature Conservancy, the League of Women Voters of Cook County, and many others. When your organization is ready to be part of the effort, or if you would like further information, please contact Beth or Henrietta Saunders, and I'll put that contact information in the chat. I'd like to add that the Forest Preserve District of Cook County, outside of John's department, offers many public programs and services to carry out its mission in other ways. One of these is the Conservation at Home program, which provides outreach and guidance for residents to improve the habitat on their private properties. Greener Glenview is offering a virtual presentation about this program tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. through the Glenview Public Library. Details are on the Go Green Illinois website. And now I'll turn it over to John McCabe, expecting that his narrative will inspire us as we all look towards spring.
Thank you very much, Sherry, for the wonderful introduction. My name is John McCabe. I am the Director of the Department of Resource Management here at the Forest Preserves of Cook County. And I do have a phenomenal job here in managing the largest forest preserve district in the United States as it relates to an urban area and the second most populated county with 5.2 million people here in Cook County. I really look forward to being able to share some information with you today. And thank you very much to Leslie for her presentation. And you've saved me a little bit of time with your introduction, and some of the stuff that Leslie covered, I'll be able to, follow up on as well here in my presentation. So for one, I've got to get some propaganda out about the Forest Preserve, which Sherry did cover a little bit. So as she mentioned about our mission, from the Department of Resource Management perspective, I sort of focus on restore and manage lands and protecting and preserving. But we all know, like with your local park districts or your local natural areas, you can't do anything without the support of the public. And so part of our role is educating pleasure and recreation of the public. So we have to combine both of those pieces. And that's where some of the things that Sherry was just talking about come in. We can do all this work, but if people are not supporting it, the natural resource will go away or not be managed properly. Just some quick numbers. I'm not going to read through this all, but with people in your community who might say, why should I care about the Forest Preserve? I never use the Forest Preserve. This number here on the bottom left is a critical piece. $469 million of ecosystem services per year from the Forest Preserve provided to residents of Cook County. As Sherry mentioned about the stormwater, there's been some studies done, models run that say 80% of all stormwater that moves through Cook County crosses the Forest Preserve District of Cook County's property at some point. That's a pretty incredible number when you think about that. And to think about if the Forest Preserves were not here, how many flooded basements there would be in addition to what's already happening out there. 60 million annual visitors. Okay, that exceeds the number of a lot of national parks across the United States, right here in Cook County. So getting that out in the open. The other thing I wanted to talk about was touch on restoration and why this is important. There was this idea back in the day, right, that you could just put a fence around things and save it, right? And that was okay. It was open space and that the insects and the birds that were there were going to be fine. We found out through science, right, that wasn't the case. And we knew that we had to manage these areas in order for them to be a healthy ecosystem so that we have biodiversity and not a monoculture, right? A lot of us that are managing land know if you walk away, we're going to have nothing there but buckthorn, honeysuckle, and some of our other least favored friends on the plant side. Ecological restoration can revitalize some of these systems. And in the case of the Forest Preserve, and maybe in some of your cases, and like was mentioned with the Bell Bowl Prairie, some of these remnant habitats that are actually still in existence, believe it or not, in one of the more populated counties in the United States. Reestablish and manage native species, as we heard in Leslie's talk, the benefits of native plant species and what that means to our native animal species here on the insect side, and especially from the bird perspective, which the Forest Preserve District plays a big role in providing habitats for all of these animals. Again, removing these invasive species to provide for the healthier habitat also impacts that stormwater uptake. when anyone who's walked through buckthorn or in and around honeysuckle or any of these other invasives, you know what's on the ground in those locations, nothing but bare soil. And so being able to get those removed and establish a habitat like we have in the background of this photo, we know that's going to do a much better job with managing our water and restoring hydrologic function to some degree, which is another big issue that the Forest Preserve wrestles with. When Beth mentioned that I was going to do a presentation and talk about the problems of the Forest Preserve, there's not enough time in the week for me to sit down and talk to you about all of that, not to mention the fact that it would be rather depressing. But we're going to talk, I'm here today to talk about some of the things that we have been working on and are fixing, and with the continued support of the people of Cook County, we'll be able to continue to do this wonderful work that ties into a lot of the work that your teams are doing as well. So in this photo, you can see this is a photo monitor of a site where we've cleared the invasive species. And this is a period of about 3 years. This is out at our Deer Grove Forest Preserve in Palatine, where this photo on the left was taken before the work started, obviously, and then 3 years later. So you can see that's a very big difference. This kind of information really resonates with the general public. The fact of the matter is, and as many of you know, the general public would look at that picture on the left and say, this is green, it's open space, I support it, not recognizing that it's really an unhealthy ecosystem. And then looking at the photo on the right, most people would say, of course, that looks even better, and I would support that. And so being able to make sure that we're able to continue to do this work is why we need that additional support. And this next slide is a similar situation. Okay, again, in a period of 1 or 2 years, 2 to 3 years, I mean, that's a pretty shocking, sort of remodel of the Forest Preserve in this area. This one on the right is Chipley Woods, which is up in the Northbrook area. So on the biodiversity side, again, we have to manage these lands to keep biodiversity up. And we know the more diverse our habitats are, the more response we see, positive response we see on the wildlife side of things, not to mention the plant side of things. The district manages 27 dedicated Illinois nature preserves, which is the most of any land management agency across the state. We're very proud of that fact. And a lot of that is due to the support of our partner organizations and our volunteer stewardship community as well. So just real quick, some of the habitats that we manage: woodlands, savannas, wetlands, and prairies. And some of the animals and plants that call the Forest Preserve home. And the fact of the matter is, if it wasn't for the Forest Preserve District, 70,000 acres, a lot of these plants and animals would not have a place to call home here. Even some of the smaller areas, natural areas that are still in existence within the county that we don't manage, would not be enough to sustain a lot of these populations. And the work that homeowners can do too, that have been pointed out by Leslie, help buffer these areas, especially if they're adjacent to a Forest Preserve District. So on the animal side of things, bald eagles have returned to the area. We've seen many of them. I witnessed a release here about 3 weeks ago of an eagle that was found injured on our property. And that was pretty impressive to see that majestic bird up close and being able to get that bird back out in the wild. But we've seen otters return to the area in force, Blanding's turtles, black-crowned night herons, as an example. And then, of course, some of the animals that aren't so endangered and threatened, right? But we know that these animals, if their populations are under control, right, play an important role in the ecosystem. And again, if the Forest Preserve District wasn't there, some of these animals would not be providing that function and doing what they're supposed to do. Now, I know this is the skunk here on the right is one of the biggest complaints that we get about people wanting us to come pick up our skunks that are in their yard that sprayed their dog. I can assure you that that's a neighborhood skunk and not a Forest Preserve skunk. So I'm just cutting that question off now. So one of the things that we do too, I know it was mentioned about, that the Forest Preserve supports a lot of trees, and that is a fact for sure. But we also do some tree removal work when we're doing our restoration work. As you can see in the photo on the left here through this special camera lens that we utilize, and this picture gets plugged into a computer model where we're looking to do management to get more light on the ground. So you can see the photo on the left is the before, and then the photo on the right is the after. That's one of the key things that our forest preserves and our neighboring forest preserves, so in Lake County, McHenry County, DuPage, Kane, Kendall, Will, all suffer from canopy closure and not enough light getting on the forest floor due to the lack of fire for many years. And so tree thinning is an important component of our work in order to get that diversity and biodiversity on the forest floor that we need for these healthy ecosystems. The Forest Preserve of Cook County, we talk about it as the lungs of Cook County. And so it's not just the tree aspect of what we're doing that helps clean the air, it's these healthy ecosystems. If they're functioning properly, they're cleaning way more air than just a stand of trees with an understory covered in buckthorn. And so that's another key component of the work that we have to do. And the way we do some of this work, and some of you I know are familiar with this, hand removal, brush cutting, of course, a very important component of seeding. Brush pile burning, where we're disposing of debris from some of the work that we're doing. Herbicide application, I know that that's something that nobody really wants to do, but on the scale of work that we do, we have to do that. And the key focus on that, of course, right, is proper training, education, licensing, and making sure that we're using the least amount of chemical possible out there. And then hydrology is a big issue. I mentioned the stormwater. There's a lot of infrastructure around the forest preserve, that some that we own, some that local municipalities own, that hasn't been maintained, and that's creating negative impacts, on the ecology of the forest preserve. So getting the funding to help support us fix some of that is going to be a very key piece for us in getting the ecology healthier, as well as the vegetative work, something that a lot of people don't realize. Brush mowing, we do a lot of brush clearing. Woody species is one of the biggest issues that we have. As I mentioned, buckthorn, honeysuckle, we can keep going down the list, barberry. There's a whole bunch of those folks out there that we need to clear out of that understory, then thin that overstory out to be able to bring the light levels down to have the response that I shared with you in a couple of those earlier photos. And prescribed fire. This is a key part of our operation as well. And being able to utilize fire as a land management tool is key to minimizing our herbicide use. If we can get fire out in some of these habitats, that will help knock back these woodies and some of the non-native invasives that we're trying to get rid of. And in some cases, the native invasives, it helps keep them in check so we can minimize our herbicide use. And so this is a key piece of our operation as well. And again, we can't be putting fire down in some places, right, until we get rid of that buckthorn and honeysuckle, because there's no fuel in there. This is sort of a breakdown of our spend on work for a year. So 66% of our budget, which is over a couple $1 million, is spent on woody clearing and then resprout follow-up work. Okay. 18% on herbaceous invasive control. And I really want to point out the 6% on prescribed fire. We do a lot of burning. We burn at a level that nobody else in the United States is burning at in an urban environment. And we're still only spending 6% of our budget on that. That just goes to show you how big of a bang for our buck we get on the fire side of things. So it's really a critical piece. And the reason I keep sort of pointing that out, one of the key things that anybody could do for us and for your natural areas is be an advocate. So even if you can't get out and do some of the things that Leslie was talking about or that I'm talking about, you can be an advocate. And that would be a key thing and a huge help for all of our organizations. And then this is sort of large scale. So I'm sort of painting the picture of the work that we do here at the Forest Preserve, and then going to come back to what you could do as an individual or at your house. So this is our 10,000 acre Payless Forest Preserve. And you can see the amount of work that's been done. Everything in the darker orange color was pre-2015, and then everything after is what we've done in the last 5 years. So we have really ramped up our work. And again, if we can get this additional funding, this additional, public support, it will help us to be able to continue to do this work at this scale and be able to have these habitats at this 10,000 acre piece all functioning as the healthiest ecosystem it can, which again is important for everybody else around there. And so what can you do? Again, Leslie had already touched base on some of this stuff, but one of the things I wanted to emphasize is not planting invasive species at your house. Some of these invasive species are nice looking. I mean, we run into this problem out on the forest preserve with plants like purple loosestrife and crown vetch, where they have really nice, pretty flowers. And the general public thinks that that looks really nice, not realizing that these are incredibly invasive plants that will really negatively impact our properties. And so if you're planting these things on your properties or incorporating them into landscape designs for your facilities or other developments within your municipality, that could negatively impact your other natural areas. And if it's adjacent to a forest preserve, it could negatively impact that forest preserve. So that would be a huge help to be communicating with these folks to make sure that they're not planting invasive species. You know, some of the more popular ones out there, the Japanese barberry, Callery pear. If I could meet the person that invented that tree, oh, there would only be one person leaving that room. I could tell you that. Burning bush is another one. You know, teasel, everyone sees that along the roadway. Common reed is another plant, right? Most people know it as Phragmites. You see that along the tollways. Very salt tolerant plant, very invasive. And here's conservation at home. So I didn't put this slide in. I already had this in my presentation, but everybody's been talking about it. I strongly recommend folks that want to do something around the house, certainly look at that presentation. That's tomorrow night. I saw in the chat in Glenview, or being led by Glenview. We have a great relationship with this team. We work with the Illinois Extension, and our conservation and experiential programming department is sort of the lead for us on this and connects people to conservation at home. And it was mentioned, this is a picture of my certified conservation at home garden at my house that my wife and I have worked on for about the last 15 years. And so at a minimum, it's awesome to be able to go out there and just walk around. And you talk about seeing bees and dragonflies and all that stuff. That's a wonderful way to sort of unload after the end of a busy workday, I can assure you. So I strongly support the conservation at home piece. And that's something that the municipalities on here should be advocating for with folks in their neighborhood. I want to point out our conservation corps real quick too. If folks have youth that are looking for work, we have summer jobs in our conservation corps for high school age, so freshmen in high school, up to young adults that end up being crew supervisors, college age students. And that's a great way for people to spend a couple of weeks in the summer doing positive work for the environment and obtaining a paycheck. Stewardship. This is a key piece. I mentioned a little bit earlier, but our volunteer stewardship program. So we have dedicated volunteers across our forest preserve district from North Cook to South Cook that are out all the time, cutting invasive brush, collecting seeds, doing herbicide work. And if it wasn't for them, some of our best natural areas would have been lost a long time ago, because this was the Forest Preserve's land management program before we were able to start to ramp things up over the last couple of years. This is a picture of me out at a work day. We allow volunteers to run power tools. So anybody who wants to get their chainsaw action in, you can get certified with us and come out and operate a chainsaw to help remove invasives. In this case, I'm removing maples, thinning maples and bussy woods here. Prescribed fire, we allow our volunteers to come out on prescribed burning if you get your certification. In this particular photo, there's 2 full-time staff here and the rest are volunteers on a weekend burn we did out at our Poplar Creek Forest Preserve in Hoffman Estates. Our resource management crew out with our volunteers at Soam Woods, Steve Packard, some of you might know, in the rust-colored shirt there in the middle, leading the volunteer team there. Great combo work day. And then even the most sort of simple thing is litter cleanups people could get out. This is a huge benefit in the Forest Preserve and of course in your local communities. This is an activity I like to do myself, and that it's really simple and you feel a real sense of accomplishment when you're done. We have a pretty robust litter obliterators program, as we call it. And to volunteer, you could visit our website, fpdcc.com. 2 of our longtime volunteers here down in the Palos region, Joe Newman and Margaret Tobin, standing by a pile of garlic mustard, which to make that pile, that was definitely a couple hours worth of work. And again, as I mentioned, at a minimum, even if you don't want to get out and do this kind of work, you don't want to do the garden at home, you could advocate for land management. You could advocate for the positive improvement of our ecological systems. That's a huge help for us. So that would be greatly appreciated. And thank you very much. There's my email address. If anybody would like to shoot me an email and ask any questions, I'd be happy to do that. I know we're on a tight time frame here and I probably went over my limit a little bit. So thank you.
John, that was just great. Thank you very, very much. When you pull your slide down, we'll get back. So if we are a little short on time, your program was fantastic and covered so many wonderful things. The Forest Preserve, they call it the Emerald Necklace of Chicago. When you talk about having preserves that are 10,000 acres, that's just stunning. But if you fly in or out of Chicago, most of this is built environment, concrete yards. So no matter what you do, what we do in our own communities is vitally important to support the work in the forest preserves. So thank you for that overview. Again, I want to reinforce the fact that there is going to be a referendum in this year, and those voters in Cook County have an opportunity to support that so that the forest preserves can have the funding that they need. So thank you very, very much. I am now going to introduce our next speaker. It's Emma Oschrin. She works with the Budburst program out of the Chicago Botanic Garden. And poor thing, we only gave her 5 minutes on the agenda, but she is going to speak very quickly and let us know how we can help our community members get involved in the Budburst program. So Emma, do we have you? Okay, she's starting the screen share. Thank you, Emma.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. I am going to go quickly, but I have my email in a couple different places on this presentation, so please email me if you want any follow-ups. So thanks for the introduction. I am Dr. Emma Oschrin. I am the Budburst Director at the Chicago Botanic Garden. We are a community science program. So this means that we are a program that does real scientific research, and it's something that anyone can participate in. So we bring together researchers, scientists, educators, and of course, community scientists to answer critical ecological questions. And what we're doing is observing plants to help us better understand how plants are being impacted by climate change. And we do a lot of this work looking at phenology. So phenology is the study of the timing of seasonal changes in plants and animals, but we at Budburst focus on plants. And although this word might be new to some folks, I guarantee you are familiar with the idea of it. So if you've ever noticed when buds and flowers start to come out in the spring, or when leaves start to change color or lose their leaves in the fall, you are already studying phenology. So all that we do at Budburst is ask you to write down or put that information in your phone and send it off to us. And it becomes part of our international database where we're collecting this data at a very large scale across all 50 states and in multiple countries. So we are collecting this data because it helps us understand how plants are being impacted by climate change. So I'll talk a little bit about what that means. So we know that our spring or our spring-like temperatures are happening earlier and earlier in the calendar year due to climate change. So what this means is we are getting these earlier spring-like temps, and that can affect when plants go through these spring seasonal changes. So for instance, if we are starting to see warmer temperatures and our plants are responding to those warm temperatures, they might go through these spring phases, getting buds, getting flowers, earlier in the calendar year than we have seen historically or over evolutionary time. Now, this might not sound like a bad thing, especially if we're all here in Illinois. Early spring sounds nice, but it can leave plants vulnerable to things like late frosts, and it also might mean that we have what we call an ecological mismatch. So it might mean that our plants are responding to warm temperatures and they are putting out their buds and their flowers, but our pollinators might not have emerged yet. So when the pollinators emerge, maybe that happens a little bit later. Maybe they're responding to something besides the temperatures, perhaps daylight or another cue. That might be happening at a different time than when our plants put out their blossoms. So if we have this mismatch between when plants are ready to be pollinated and when pollinators are ready to pollinate, that is going to have a lot of ramifications because, as you all know, plants are connected to everything in the ecosystem. So we watch plants, but it's because they can help tell us about how pollinators are being affected and how the entire ecosystem is affected, including us and our food supply, for instance. So at Budburst, we have 5 main research projects running right now. I'm going to talk about the top 3 in this list. If the other 2 are of interest to you, you can email me and I'll give you more information. So the first project is what a lot of that brief intro was about, our phenology and climate project. This is really our bread and butter. We've been running this project since 2007. And what you'll do for this project is, like I said, collect data on when plants go through these seasonal changes. So you can look at any plant species at any location. It's a really flexible project. And we just ask you to tell us when your plants go through these different changes. So you'll look at different plant parts, for instance, flowers, fruits, and leaves, and you'll tell us what they're doing. You would say, I'm in Chicago, Illinois, it's April 17th, and this plant has its first flower. And we collect that data at a large scale, and that's able to let us know how plants are changing in response to climate change. And the different plant parts will vary depending on the plant. If you're looking at a conifer, you wouldn't see these data wheels. You would see cones, pollen, needles, for instance. Now, our other project I'm going to talk about is our Pollinators and Climate project. This is looking at plants and their pollinators. So you will still tell us what phenological stage your plant is in. You'll tell us about the flowers, and then you would watch it for 10 minutes. So you'd see what pollinators visit in that 10-minute time frame. Now, if you have great pollinator ID, you can collect data for this project at an expert or advanced level, where you get into more detail about the pollinators you're seeing. But if you're still working on your pollinator ID, you can collect data at a more basic level and still give us valuable information. And the last project I want to get into today is our Milkweeds and Monarchs project. For this one, as was mentioned earlier, we know that monarch butterflies only lay their eggs on milkweed plants, so they have this really tightly linked relationship. So for this project, we ask whether monarch butterflies preferentially lay their eggs on flowering or non-flowering milkweed stems. And for this project, you will look at a milkweed species that you have in your yard or in your neighborhood. You'll tell us the flowering stage, and then you'll look for monarch eggs or caterpillars. And we get to better understand what type of habitat best supports monarch butterflies. And now, if you participate in the Budburst version of this project, it also helps the Field Museum with their monarch and milkweed project as well. So the data does double duty. Now, just a few more things before I finish up. If you want more information, you can go to budburst.org and you can get all of our resources there. They're all free and publicly available. We have activities for families, for educators, for students, for groups, and you can explore that and see what is of interest to you. And the last thing is that we have a mobile app, so you can submit data really easily on the go from your phone. All you need to do to find this app is search Budburst in the app stores. It works for both iOS and for Android phones. So you can use this, send us your data in just a flash right when you take the picture. And I know we're saving questions till the end, but here's those links again, budburst.org for more information. You can email me directly, and I would love to share more information. If any different chapters would like to participate in this, I can come and give a more detailed training and workshop to explain the projects in a little bit more detail and help you learn how to collect data with Budburst. We would love to help you participate either as individuals or as chapters and groups in your respective neighborhoods across the state. So thanks for having me.
All right, thank you so much, Emma. Really appreciate that. It's such important work. Okay, so we're going to do a quick summary of some of the things that we learned and what you could do as part of your group in your community. Let's see, we'll unpin you, Emma, and okay, could you unpin yourself? There we go. Okay. All right. So again, I'm Beth Drucker. Kim Stone and I are we just want to go over some of the things that you can do in your community as part of a community group, whether you are 10 years old or just getting started. There's so many things that you could do. First of all, I just want to mention an amazing book called Nature's Best Hope. That is Doug Tallamy's book. It can be a life-changing book, convincing people that what they do in their yards is incredibly important. So I'm going to pin myself here. Okay, so Nature's Best Hope is amazing. I was even thinking of Go Green Wilmette, literally buying these books and giving them away, because when people read the book, it changes what they do in their yard. So that's really important. Also, another book that's might be of interest to your readers is the Book of Hope. That is the book about Jane Goodall and Go Green Reads, which is a collaborative efforts of multiple Go Green groups. We're having a book group March 14th at 7 p.m. Liz Kunkel will probably mention more about that. But in your community, you could highlight 1 or 2 yards in your first ever sustainable yard tour. It's incredibly important. And you could also, like Go Green Deerfield does, just put photographs on your website about sustainable yards, or do a 5-minute video about some of the people who are gardening in your community in a way that helps the planet. You can also do a simple tree walk. They're really, really popular, and there are all kinds of tree experts you could call in to help with that. You could do a native plant sale, or send your folks to someone else's native plant sale. That's where you can get real natives, small sizes, affordable prices, really important. If you have a nursery in your community, meet with them and say, we would like you to stock true natives, not just cultivars, not just Asian and European plants. Also, think about talking to your schools and your park districts. In your community, they probably have more land than anyone else, also your village. So there's lots of ways you can get involved and take a little piece of this and make a difference in your community. And so with that, just because we are running a little bit slowly on time, I want to thank all of our speakers. You are all doing such important work, and we're going to do everything we can in our communities to support what you're doing. With that, we're going to start with our community sharing, and we generally do this alphabetically, but today we're going to go Z to A, which means keep an eye on the alphabet. We're going to start with Winthrop Harbor in case Dorothy Nolan would like to say anything. Liz Kunkel, you're on deck with Go Green Winnetka. So the first person who wants to unmute and start speaking, you can. Okay. Do we have Liz Kunkel?
Yes.
Great. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Hi, everyone. Liz Kunkel, Go Green Winnetka. I dropped a couple links in the chat already in line with what Beth said earlier in the meeting. At the beginning of the meeting, she mentioned this really wonderful intercommunity collaborative event that the Winnetka Congregational Church is spearheading, along with a number of local Go Green groups and at least one chapter of the League of Women Voters, which is this evening with Jan Schakowsky on Tuesday, March 22nd. I'll drop the link in again. It's not a registration link. It's just a link to the event when it starts in real time. They're not doing pre-registration. The event will largely focus on environmental justice, but we expect some of the conversation to more specifically revolve around plastics and single-use plastics and some of the work that Representative Schakowsky has done in that area. And then Beth also mentioned our upcoming Go Green Reads discussion on Monday, March 14th. As she said, we're discussing the Book of Hope by Jane Goodall. I put the link for that meeting in as well. And I'm going to drop one more in right now, which is a special Earth Day event that Go Green Reads is collaborating with through the book stall. John Grand of the book stall is going to interview Julian Hoffman, who wrote a wonderful book called Irreplaceable, The Fight to Save Our Wild Places, which is exactly what we've been talking about in this meeting, and protecting our habitat and biodiversity and recognizing that it is literally irreplaceable. So we're excited to be involved in these events. When we're not doing these book and presentation events, our group this year is very focused on participating in our 20-year comprehensive plan in Winnetka. We decided not to do our sustainable yard tour this year because of that, because we think not just our group's resources, but what we're asking of the members in our community is to really participate and be engaged in that long-term planning process. So we're really staying focused on that within Winnetka this year. We will be doing our native plant sale, however, on Saturday, September 10th from 9 to 11 a.m. And we'll share more details with this group about that later. So thanks very much.
Okay, thank you so much. If we skip you, put it in the chat, because Dorothy, we're not sure. I can see who registered. I can't necessarily see who's participating. So if Winthrop Harbor wants to do a report, please put that in the chat. Okay, next, I guess it's Wilmette. GoGreenOmet is very busy working on a tree ordinance. We hope to vote on it tonight. And if any of you are interested in doing tree ordinance work, please let us know because we have done it for months and we would love to share what we're doing. Next, we are continuing our webinars. We're doing one about fast fashion on March 23rd. We'd love to have you join us for that. We do a newsletter every 2 weeks. If you're a younger group and you want to kind of keep up with what's happening, feel free to sign up for our newsletter and copy and paste anything from our newsletter into your newsletter. We're happy to have you promote what we're doing, just as we promote what a lot of other groups are doing. If you do have events that you'd like everyone else in Go Green Illinois to know about, please do go straight to the Go Green Illinois website and post that event yourself. So we are also working, we're trying to work closely with our village and with our park district. What our park district does as far as what they choose to plant trees are very, very important. Also just want to mention a new, we are trying to get more trees planted in Wilmette, but we're also just today did a call with the Chicago Region Trees Initiative and the Habitat for Humanity organization in Lake County. They have homes that need trees. CRTI has trees that need homes, and we're hoping that that is going to be a wonderful partnership. We're looking for an intern. If you don't have an intern, keep in mind that they can be really helpful. And we're doing lots of other things, but I think that's enough for now. And we will next call on, so we're going to be doing, Kim, can you talk about Vernon Hills, please?
Yep.
And then Skokie and Riverwoods, you guys are on deck.
Yep, Seema was
Please.
not able to be here, but she shared this update. Vernon Hills and Lincolnshire are tabling for Earth Day and library events. Their focus will be on residential pickup program. There's a brochure on how and why to sign up for food waste pickup. Also, they're going to focus on how to reduce single-use plastics, examples of reuse, postcards to send to legislators to take action on restricting single-use plastic. Lincolnshire is working with District 103 schools to start food scrap and waste pickup, and hoping to start one school before the end of this school year. That is all.
Okay, thank you, Kim. One thing I forgot to mention that I wanted to throw out to all their groups across the United States, there in the month of April is a movement called Clean Sweep. If you just Google Clean Sweep, you will find lots of communities that do essentially litter pickup. And I'm just throwing it out there that it might be a very simple event for some of your groups to do. It would cost you nothing. You could partner with some scout troops or some school groups, or even just challenge or invite your community to do it independently. It's all of our communities would benefit from a little bit of a clean sweep in April. Do we have someone who can report from Skokie? And then Lori Breitkopf, we'll hear from you from River Woods, whichever one of you can unmute more quickly.
I can go if that's
okay,
fine.
Go ahead. Yep.
Okay, the Riverwoods Preservation Council will be now running the native plant sale. The other group has disbanded, so RPC has taken on the plant sale. This year it'll be on May the 14th. And speaking of Clean Sweep, we are also sponsoring the Roadside Cleanup Day, and that's when all the neighbors go out and clean up their own streets of the garbage. So we used to do that every year, and it fell by the wayside, and now we're back to doing that.
When do you do that, Lori?
That'll be the same day. That'll be May 14th. We're going to have actually a community day where there's going to be a barbecue, and there'll be the roadside cleanup and the native plant sale, and people will be able to get together and be outside hopefully and enjoy the day as a community.
Nice.
We also in August are going to do some kind of kids and arts event. We've done that the last couple of years at one of our shelters, and that sits among the open spaces that we have in Riverwoods. And finally, we are looking at doing a community garage sale in the fall of this year.
Okay, great. I know that your group was concerned about the plan to sell land for a gas station, which seems a little bit anachronistic this day and age. What happened with that fight?
Well, we lost because there was too much money involved. The village of Riverwoods needed money and it decided to okay the gas station so it could get something like $400,000 a year in sales revenue. So
Well,
they
hoping-
sold out.
Hoping for a short life to that gas station.
I'm hoping, I asked, I'm on the plan commission in Riverwoods, actually I'm the chair. And I wanted them to make some promises, such as at least putting in some EV charging stations, and they wouldn't even go that far.
Wow.
But I also asked them to do some kind of plan for when their gas station goes out of business, and they didn't believe that I was really asking that, but I think it will be. So
You
we'll
keep-
see. I'll have the last laugh.
You keep asking and they'll
Keep
believe you
asking.
at some point.
Never give up. Never give
That's
up.
right. And never take your first no for a final no,
Yes.
Exactly.
especially in this work.
That's
Okay.
right.
So going backwards, we're going to ask Robin Gable's office, Prospect Heights, and Park Ridge to be prepared to give some sort of a talk. And Palatine, you're on deck too. So does Diane Goldring from Robin Gable's office like to do a quick report? If not, we can hear from Prospect Heights, whoever wants to unmute. Or whoever is designated to speak for Park Ridge. We had 4 of you on, if anyone wants to speak. Go ahead.
Sorry. Thanks to help from you, Beth, and we are having our first native plant sale with Maine East on May 14th and 15th. Or is it 13th and 14th? I think it's 13th and 14th at Maine East, and we'll get it on. There's a website. If you all are looking for native plant sales, there's a website to find them. So we're looking forward to a great partnership. We also have a book club that we partnered with our library. We'll be reading Animal Vegetable Junk in April by Bittman. We are showing a big, we're part of the One Earth Film Festival for the 5th year, I believe. We'll be showing the movie The Plastic Bag Store, the film, this Friday night at Maine South, but all the films also have virtual links this year. So if you can't get to Park Ridge to see the film, it's uplifting. It's a very serious subject, but it's a very uplifting movie. So I hope you can make it, and also check out all the other One Earth Film Festival movies. They're great. We are looking for an intern, and we're lining up a new thing for us, a speaker series to show our expertise to other community organizations so that they can invite us as speakers on different topics. And last but not least, we have done, I think, 3 litter pickups, and we're going to do our last one, our next one at the end of the month. And I'm going to tell them to check into the Clean Sweep website. So thank you.
Great. That's awesome news. Park Ridge is always up to good stuff. Okay, so going backwards, if we could get Palatine, Northfield, Northbrook, and Morton Grove ready to speak. Is anyone, let's see, we have someone from Palatine who I think has never been here before. Janet, I'm not sure whether you are prepared to speak, but if you'd like to tell us what your group is doing, now's the time.
Okay, thank you, Beth. I'm, as you said, I'm new to this meeting. I've enjoyed all the speakers, all the information. I don't really have anything to report. I'm sitting in for Rita. The one thing I do know is that Rita continues to work on the getting the textile recycling agreement with the village and a vendor. I do not actually have a status update on that, but I know that's one of the things she continues to work on.
Okay, so you're part of the Cool Cities program.
That is correct.
Okay, I think
I'm new to that too. I'm new to all of this, but yes.
Good, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's great. Okay, do we have anyone from Northfield who'd like to give a report? I will say Northfield is doing some really great stuff on social media because I see their Instagram posts, which is great. And I know that they also collaborate with the Go Green Reads program. Northfield was a community that just voted 1 to 6 to not have any restrictions on leaf blowers. And we are trying to engage Northbrook, get them into that program. which goes to say that your elected officials are very, very important. So if your group is not dabbling a little bit in getting good candidates, encouraging them to run, and getting to know your village trustees, that's a really good step that's important to take.
Since you bring that up, now is the time to be thinking about running for your local offices, because elections are in about a year. They're next April for local offices for most of our communities. So if you want to run for city council, village board, park district board, school board, any of those things, I would encourage you to do so. And I'm happy to talk with anyone about how to do that.
Okay, and related to that, there wasn't anyone from Skokie to give a report. Looks like we had someone from the village of Skokie, but their trustees did just vote for the large Carvana installation, which is going to be visible from the Harms Woods in the Forest Preserve. It is going to be an attraction for migrating birds and will no doubt result in the collision deaths of many, many migrating birds. They have a caucus system, and everyone that came through the caucus system voted to have this large, brightly lit vending machine for used cars. And James Johnson, who was the only one not part of the caucus system, voted against it. It was opposed by every bird group in Illinois, many, many groups, but it really underscored that who you elect to represent your community makes a big difference. Do we have anyone? I know we're not going to have a report from Morton Grove, but I know they're.
Beth,
Yeah.
Can I interrupt? I just wanted to, it's Debbie
Yes.
Brown.
Hi, Debbie.
I have a friend who's a trustee that I had written to in Skokie about this, months prior. And she told me the only reason she voted for it, she felt she owed me an explanation, is they didn't know what would go in next. They didn't have control over that. And she was quoted in the Trib because she looked into it. They have to have all their lights out at certain hours during migration. So she clacked them with a bunch of stipulations. So she is trying her best to limit that. And also they have to put the decals on the windows. There's a lot that they're trying to do.
Right. It was unfair. It was unfair of me not to mention that they did get a lot of concessions out of Carvana that they had never done before to minimize the bird collision. And getting the lights off, especially during migration season. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yes, you're welcome.
And I think those trustees probably learned a big lesson about how important this issue was for their community. Do we have anyone who'd like to give a report from Northbrook? Sarah or Sheetal Pandit?
Hi, it's Sarah here. And so we're having Pam Carlson, who was mentioned in Doug Tallamy's book and presentations, as a woman who has built a garden that's very bird friendly in the Chicago suburbs. So we're having her come to our library. And so that you can sign up for that Zoom. That is March 31st at 7. And the day before that, we're having Just Go Green Northbrook is having a film discussion about Don't Look Up. And I'd like to invite all of you to come to do that. So that's going to be on Zoom, and I will put that on our website. And then what else? We're just plugging away at gas powered leaf blowers at the village and that kind of thing. So.
Great, thank you very much. I know that also Go Green Northbrook did a great job on being part of the solar tour last September. Go Green Wilmette did host it was solar for homeowners, and we had people from 20 different communities sign in on that. Sarah was on that as well. And we highlighted that was Go Green Highland Park started that webinar. They got the speaker, and we, other groups co-sponsored it. So it was the same amount of work with 4 different community groups getting their people to it. So we recorded that solar webinar. It is on if you go to YouTube and you search for Go Green Wilmette, you could watch that excellent webinar featuring Jay Futterman about solar for homeowners. Okay, so McHenry, Libertyville, Lake Forest, and Lake Bluff. You're the next in the group. Do we have Kristen Meyer with McHenry? Is that McHenry County? I think she was on the solar thing. So Kristen, if you are on and you want to have a minute, let us know. If not, Jerry Lukasik, Libertyville. I know he was on earlier.
Did you miss Morton Grove?
They didn't have a report.
Ah, okay.
They texted me. Okay, so Lake Forest or Lake Bluff? Green Mines, you, or do I have you? I know you signed on.
I'm here.
Okay.
We have been pretty busy. We have been kicking out again. We paused our dental care collections for TerraCycle, but we have that up and running again. We are doing utensil collections at First Presbyterian Church, so everybody can drop off the disposable utensils they get with takeouts. You know, if they forget to tell them we don't want it, they can drop it off there, and we bring it to pets and other food soup kitchens. We have razor blade collection as well. We're really busy gearing up for Earth Day, where we're collaborating both with the City of Lake Forest and Eleva Farms, Open Lands, the Parks and Rec Center, the library, the Gordon Community Center, and Green Minds are gonna do a campaign called Act for Earth. This I can do, where we're getting people to make pledges of things they will do this year to increase their or decrease their footprints. We have organized. We are having 2 beach cleanups. We have a compost class we're going to do at Eleva Farms. We're going to do a book discussion on saving us at Lake Forest Library. We're going to do t-shirt bag sewing, where we're sewing bags out of old t-shirts and donating them to a farm in a food desert not far from us. We are really, and then we are really busy also with 2 other things. There's the leaf blower committee. Our leaf blower committee is looking for a student who can handle their IT and organize a petition for them. And we are busy with fighting this 10 acres of synthetic turf that our city is planning to install on the behind our middle school at Deer Park Community Park. And we are looking for other organizations that is willing to co-sign letters with us. We have Sierra Club co-signing, Go Green Highland Park is co-signing, the Green Minds is co-signing, and League of Women Voters. We're looking for other people who are and groups that is willing to co-sign, because this is also right on the Skokie River, and they are going to divert the water down there, which can increase flash floods in other communities south of us. The PFAS and the PAS and the mercury and lead, all of it, the plastic pollution, that all will be flushed down Skokie River and affect other communities. So we're looking for other partners who are willing to co-sign a letter to please ask them to be good neighbors and not do this. And yeah, we're really fighting this, because one synthetic turf field alone, an average turf field contains 40,000 pounds of plastic carpet and 400,000 pounds of infills, which is often old rubber tires. So this is a lot of plastic, much more than the straws we can save our community from each field. And they only last 7 to 10 years, and then they are ending up in our landfills in our communities, or sometimes they've been dumped in rivers or in nature preserves when they didn't want to pay the landfill fees. And they're full of PFAS, PAS, lead, mercury, all sorts of nasty things that we just don't want to see around our children.
So thank you for the leadership in that issue. Wilmette put an artificial field in, I don't know, 8 years ago. Go Green Wilmette didn't say boo about it. And boy, from what I've learned from what you have shared with me, we all should be making sure that our communities are not putting in artificial turf fields. There's a massive environmental impact to those fields. So thank you very much, you. Do we have, again, if I skip you alphabetically, Z to A, please put it in the chat. We had anyone from Lakewood wanted to say anything? That's a new Carrie Gassman from Lakewood. We also
Carrie Gassman.
Okay.
I'm actually just kind of starting out. There's a new group in Crystal Lake, and yeah, my passion is I work as a school supervisor and just kind of want to combat some of the food waste that I'm seeing there, and was made aware of your group. So this is my first meeting. It's nice to see so many people working hard for their communities. So for now, I'm just here to observe. Hopefully I'll have wonderful things to report soon.
Good. Thank you so much for joining us. And we've been able to put her together with someone else who is doing environmental work in that area. So Go Green LaGrange recently started, and we may have someone from Go Green LaGrange. And then we have Benjamin Crumstock would be next, and then Highland Park. So if we have someone from Go Green LaGrange. Okay, Ben Crumstock, do you want to say a few words? Again, if I miss you, put it in the chat, we'll call on you. Highland Park, there's many of you on who would like to speak for Go Green Highland Park.
Jenny is.
Howdy. I've got a little list here. We are going to be doing a social media campaign from April 1st to April 22nd. We do every year. It's the only time our Twitter account blows up, but hey, 22 days is okay. This year, our theme is eating for the climate. So we're going to be posting vegetarian, vegan recipes and food facts about how, how we eat affects our carbon footprint in the planet. So that will be Earth Day. We are excited that our city is adding year-round organics to the waste hauling contract. So they adopted it, but it won't be implemented until next year, I think. I was a bird in an email who found out that our waste hauler will also be looking into changing the color of our lids so they're not all blue and blue and blue and blue. So I'm very excited to get like some visual differentiation on our waste hauling bins. I hope that happens. And our habitat program is moving along. So I'm so excited to see Leslie again, because she gave a wonderful presentation for us in October and guidance. We are going to be launching our habitat certification program for the community, the citywide. Candace is on, she's leading the charge. So we have a lot of stuff in store for that, and hoping to get some demonstration gardens on city property to boost our environment or our habitat program. And I think that's it.
Okay, great. Now we're going into the G's, going backwards.
Plastic for the farmer's market.
Oh, and I've been working with a few other groups. We're making a small toolkit for farmers markets to reduce plastic bags and plastic use. So
wow, please share that.
It will be on Go Green Illinois when we're ready.
Okay, if you're in a community that starts with a G, that's Grays Lake, Glen Ellen, Glenview, Glencoe, please be ready to speak. Grays Lake, Jan Kirsch. We don't normally have someone from Grays Lake. If you are still on, Jan, you can join us. If not, we'd love to hear from Glen Ellen. Jacqueline?
Hi, we got a lot going on in Glen Ellen. So we're still relatively new. We're only about 6 months old. We're having our first in-person community meeting at the library this Thursday. So hoping to finally see some of these people that have been following us, that we've been communicating with. We are going to be doing a couple of events with the Glen Ellen Park District. One is a gently used sports equipment swap that's taking place in April. So this is something that we've been wanting to try for a couple years, and just gonna go for it and see how it goes. So individuals will be able to drop off gently new or gently used or like new sports equipment the week before. They'll get a voucher, and then they can come back and use it to purchase that equipment, or people will just be able to come in and get gently used items at a discount. So the purpose is not to be a big money maker, but just to, more reduce and reuse the sheer number of youth sports equipment items that we have in our community. So that's taking place in April. We'll also be doing an Earth Day event at Lake Ellen. That's going to be family friendly, so a little bit more to come on that. And Go Green Glen Ellen has also been asked to speak to a couple of local classrooms for Earth Day. So we'll be meeting with some third graders and kindergartners and talking with them about all the things they can do for the planet. So we're excited about that. One other thing I wanted to mention is we do also have a newsletter, and we try to have a monthly focus. So last month was on energy. This month is on recycling. So if you want to get added to our list, if you're not already, you can find us at gogreenglenellen.org, and we send it out each week. And feel free to borrow and let us know how you like it. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Great to have Glen Ellen with us. Do we have a report from Glenview with Glencoe on deck? Glenview?
Yes, this is Mary Monday. Glenview, Greener Glenview is also a fairly new group. We launched in October, but most recently we were invited to speak at the Village Board of Trustees meeting. And so they wanted our perspective on, sustainable initiatives. And we had 3 points that we wanted to make. And one was that we asked them to follow our park district, which is doing a wonderful job with the sustainability plan, and to make have an environmental team across all departments, all municipal departments in Glenview. We also mentioned CJA, the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act, which in Illinois, which asks us to be 40% clean energy by 2030. And so we asked them please to start looking at their building codes and the stretch codes that are coming up in next summer, 23. No one fell asleep. They were listening. They said that they would do this. But we also said that it would be really good. We lack a sustainability plan in the village, but to get momentum going, we asked them if they would help, if they would choose a topic to be public facing with the village, and we asked them to choose solar energy, so that they would publish the number of permits in Glenview, that they would do more education on community solar, and really help push that idea. We're going to be presenting at Rotary and at the community church in Glenview in April. And we've been invited to do a number of tabling events. So we're gearing up to get ready for that. Great ideas from everybody. I'm writing down all these great ideas. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. We're so happy that Greener Glenview has launched. Glencoe with Deerfield, Evanston, College of Lake County on deck. Anything from Glencoe? Okay, Deerfield, Debbie Brown. She was on earlier.
I'm here.
Okay.
Just unmuting. In May, we are working with Friends of the Chicago River on cleanup day. It's all over the Chicago metro area, and we have one site where the North Branch comes through in the Park District, and the other site is a private church. So it's volunteers sign up, clean trash, cut buckthorn, plant some natives. The other major thing that we're doing is we have a greenhouse gas working group that's working with the village across the board on implementing ways to reduce carbon in every section that we can. And that's it.
Okay, great. Dor St. Clair with Friends of the Green Bay Trail with, we've already heard of Leslie Shad, but if there's someone else from Evanston who wants to give a talk, you're on deck. Dor, would you like to mention anything?
She's not on.
Yeah, she's not on today.
Okay,
she's
fine.
had to be out of town.
David Husmuller, College of Lake County, would you like to give us a quick report? If not, we go to Jerry Hurst with Citizens Greener Evanston.
Thank you. This has been great hearing what everybody's doing. It helped jog my memory, and I love hearing about it. We too have a tree ordinance going to our environment board tomorrow night. We have an ongoing plant sale. It's an online plant sale where people can order natives at Evanston. Leslie, it's Evanston. Okay, never mind.
EvanstonEnvironment.org. It's at we're working with the EEA, Evanston Environmental Organization as well. Yes, and it benefits both organizations, Natural Habitat.
And the other thing that we're doing also with EEA is this Friday is their Wild and Scenic Film Festival. So if you're not going to, I think it's Glenview that has the film festival, come to us. We also have a book group in connection with in cooperation with the Evanston Public Library. We're reading All We Can Save by Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson and so try to blank on her name. Hang on.
Rachel Rossner is going to be this.
Yes, and
moderator.
Yeah, yes, Rachel Rossner and Bea, Catherine Wilkinson. We're all of the natural habitat groups around town are gearing up, for making spring plans, including Edible Evanston, getting volunteers together. We're working with Northwestern on an Earth Day project, and there's also a large group of us doing the Chicago Wilderness Anti-Racism workshops that are happening. And those are a very moving experience to help us look at our own organizations to try to figure out what we can do to be more inclusive and get out of our own upper and middle class silos, as it were. Did you want to add something, Leslie?
No, that's perfect. That was a good call. To the Chicago Wilderness seminars are really worth it. And it's a diverse group of people who are in there. So it's also a terrific way to meet a lot of people across the Chicago area. So yeah, glad you mentioned that. That's a really good thought to share.
Okay, now we're going to finish up with all the communities, starting with BNA, Buffalo Grove, Brookfield, Barrington, Aurora, and Arlington Heights. So if you're ready to give it a statement or an update, Sarah Gold with Buffalo Grove, are you on? If not, someone from Brookfield. We're very excited. Go Green Brookfield is getting kind of reinvigorated.
Hello.
Hello.
My name's Iris. I literally found out I was joining you all this morning. So Katie Kaluzny and I, we are very fortunate to have a trustee that's very involved in all things environmental. So she and I are going to be working on revitalizing our local Go Green chapter. We are both, well, she's our trustee liaison. I am also on Brookfield's Conservation Commission. So as a commission and as Go Green, we want to collaborate, but we're also trying to, like, the things that we can't do as a government, but the things that we want to do is going to be what Go Green comes over. So I don't have any Go Green activities, but we, with the commission, have been working with the library for a lot of Earth Day events. So we have a couple workshops coming up. We're doing an alternative fuel car show this Saturday after Earth Day at the Brookfield Public Library. There's going to be some electronic vehicles. There's going to be my Flex Fuel Forward Focus. And we're going to be like a neighbors talking to neighbors thing. So hopefully next time will be a little bit more prepared for you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. So if you know people in other communities that don't have a Go Green group, please reach out to them and have them go find the Go Green group in their suburb, or maybe even start one. So thank you to you, Iris. Glad you could join us. Do we have anyone from Barrington who would like to say anything? Or if not, Aurora, Arlington Heights. These were people who were registered. We don't always have them actually on. Anyone else would anyone else like a minute or two? We've got 6 minutes to 3 p.m.
I'm here from Arlington Heights.
Perfect. Thank you. Good to have you. That's right. How are you,
Hi.
Melanie?
I'm good. I'm Melanie. I'm in Arlington Heights. We're a fairly new group. Our Facebook group is open. And so if you know people who live in Arlington Heights, please encourage them to find us and join in. We're going to have our first Zoom meeting on March 23rd. And we are going to have a presence at our farmers market when it opens in the spring. And we'll be able to do some demonstration events there. We're in conversations too about the containers that are used at the farmers market. So I was excited to hear Jennifer mention that. So I'll reach out to you later to hear more about what you're doing in Highland Park. And we are hoping to have a sustainable yard tour in August. So again, if you can encourage any of your friends who live in Arlington Heights to find us, we're excited about partnering with and just joining in on all of the good things that people are working on. Thank you.
Okay, great. Was anyone else passed over? If so, put your, yeah.
Crystal Lakes
Oh,
here.
I'm so sorry, Jan. Yes.
So
sorry.
I'm in the shadow. Anyway, gosh, I started this group. It's a group of one last October, and I'm part of the Environmental Defenders of McHenry County. they do a lot, but my focus was, I just learned about invasive buckthorn. I'm from Kentucky, so I was clueless a year ago. And now when I walk in the parks, I want to cry, you know? So that's what the website was for, homeowners to awareness. There's a lot of videos and articles and links. And I created like 1,000 of these posters and flyers to, to get the word out. So I connected with my neighborhood Facebook group, and it's not as easy as you think about getting people to be aware of what the issue is. One of the streets in our neighborhood, I call it Buckthorn Alley. It's like these acre lots that are just, they don't know. And so I got a little down about my project, and now I feel like I'm regrouping. And I noticed that there's a Representative Peter Walsh from Vermont. He's introduced a HR 1389. It's Invasive Species Prevention and Forest Restoration Act that was submitted in 2021 in February. So I'm thinking I'm going to get more involved with the bigger picture, and I'm reading Doug Ptolemy's book, and I want to put that on my website, and kind of grow a little more. But I'm thinking Jill Biden, I want to contact her and hook her with Doug Ptolemy. I mean, and then 60 Minutes and CBS Sunday Morning, I think we need to get it out so that awareness is the big issue, because this is such a big problem.
Yes, thank you so much, Jan. There's so many great ideas. I cut you off, but we've got to conclude on time. You should definitely be in touch with some of the other groups that are working on some of the issues that you're interested in, and hopefully there will be ideas to share. So I want to just conclude by thanking all of our speakers, both the experts at the beginning who were talking to us about habitat, and also all of you who have shared with us all of the great things that you're doing locally. If you've posted events in the chat or talked about events when reporting, please go to our website, use the post an event button that's on the homepage, gogreenillinois.org, and fill in the information so that you can share that event with everybody. You can also post things to our Facebook page. I want to just let everybody know that we have our next meeting on May 10th. We do not have a topic nailed down for that yet. So if anyone has a topic in mind, you can use the contact form on our website or email Beth or I with any ideas that you may have. And with that, at 2:59, thank you all for being here, and we hope to see you next time. If you're not on our email list, that is how we send out the information about our meetings. Please go to the website, gogreenillinois.org, and sign up so that you get notice next time. And thank you.
Thanks for all the work you're doing. See you in 2 months. All right.
Stop recording.